Google's Search Plus Your World landed a couple of weeks ago, and not everyone's pleased. It's proved to be very controversial amongst many people. We know, of course, about the spat between Google and Twitter, but many startup entrepreneurs are also very concerned with the creepiness of Google's Search Plus Your World. One of those is Brad Noble, who's the founder of PostPost.com, a Twitter search engine. And I thought I'd have him on the show to talk about why, in Brad's words, he's creeped out, or he has creepy feelings about Google's Search Plus Your World. So, Brad, welcome to TechCrunch TV.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Brad, you posted a very interesting and provocative blog about your reaction to Search Plus Your World. What do you find most creepy about it?
Creepy is a tough word. I did use that word, but what I find unsettling about it is that Google has always been a trusted, objective source for information. It's a way to get through to things that Google, in its all-powerful algorithm, is determined are relevant from the world's information. And now they're starting to insinuate their own content into Google search results, and they're doing that at the same time as they're upending our expectations. I think that it becomes somewhat creepy when products try to force, in this case, two paradigms together, and they haven't really asked the users if that's what they want. In my blog post, I talked a lot about the uncanny valley and how, what appears to be, or what has always appeared to be the almost inhuman ability of Google to make sense of the world's information is now starting to seem like a more self-serving enterprise, and I think that's a little creepy. It's also it seems to be bad product design, but that's another issue.
Well, before we get to the bad product design, I'm interested in your input on that. Did we really trust the artificial algorithm? Was it as objective, as godlike as you're suggesting?
For me, I have to say that I use Google multiple times a day, and I generally find what I'm looking for. And I can't say it was perfect. I obviously am no judge of whether it was perfect or not. But I would say that they accomplished some pretty impressive things, and they made us all, and they continue to. I don't want to make it seem like they're a sinister enterprise at this point, but I think they did some pretty impressive things to build trust with all of us around the world. I think Google is the de facto web search product, and for good reason.
Well, I have to agree there. I've been critical of Google myself, but I use it as much, perhaps more than most people every day. And I do trust it, even though I trust it like I would trust a human being, about as far as I could throw it. Do you think they've panicked with Search Plus Your World? Is it a reaction to Twitter and Facebook? Do they fear Web 3.0? Are they desperate to transform themselves into a social company?
I don't know if they're paranoid or desperate, but I would say that because they're in such a position they're in the position they're in, everybody knows who they are, and they're obviously well-heeled over there. I don't think they have reason to be paranoid, although in the inner sanctum at Google, perhaps they're seeing the trends moving a certain way and they want to stay out in front of it. And so I can see why they were tempted to bring essentially teasers to Google Plus into Google's web search results. I think it's understandable. I just think that they might have forced it. Right now, to me, it smells a bit like the aborted attempts with Google Wave and Google Buzz, where they've upended our expectations for web search by insinuating these Google Plus search results into them without us having asked for them. In a more straightforward way, I think most people are familiar now with what we in the search business call the facets that run down the left-hand side of a search interface, and those things are basically options for people to, if I do a search on Google for something specific and I don't see it right away, well then, if I know it's a blog post I'm looking for, I can click the blogs link, or I can click the images link if I know I'm looking for an image, and I can quickly filter and winnow the results based on, factors I control. And right now, it seems like Google has taken a step, away from ceding that control to me, the user, by assuming that what I want to see are posts from their new network, Google+.
How likely do you think that Search Plus Your World will become a sideshow an ornament on the main Google search engine, something that the vast majority of people neither see nor use, just another marketing ploy to blow some smoke in the face of Twitter and Facebook?
Well, it's hard for me to say. I've certainly been on the side of people enthusiastically and irrationally arguing for the value of things like Twitter in the early days of Twitter. I remember being one of those people who, against the common wisdom, was a fan of Twitter, and I found myself in conversations all the time about what was great about Twitter, because to most people it didn't seem so great. Now I think I'm on the side of the doubters who thinks that Google Plus doesn't really seem like such a great thing to me, and but there are others who think it is great, and time will tell with these things. I think they've made some tremendous advances in terms of Google Hangouts and the ability to circle people. Seems like an interesting way for people to organize those that they follow and connect with. But as of right now, it just looks to me like Google Plus. It's certainly a better offering than Wave was or than Buzz was. But
which isn't saying much, right?
Right. I would say that's true. So it's certainly better, and they certainly have people who are advocating for it. But to me, I'm still a Twitter guy. I love Twitter. So I'm spending most of my time there. I haven't been lured over to Google Plus, but some have, and we'll have to see.
Well, Brad, as the founder of PostPost, why should I use PostPost versus Search Plus Your World? Why are you a better social search engine than the Leviathan of Google?
I would never go so far as to say PostPost is a better search engine than Google, but what I would say is that we at PostPost have been focused on our offering. We're not trying to stuff two paradigms together. We purely return results from the people you follow on Twitter, which is essentially the second half of Google's offering that they've just rolled out now. Right now, when you do a search on Google, if you're signed in and you haven't disabled this, you're going to get results from the public web or the world's information, and you're also going to get results from within your circles on Google Plus. And so those two search paradigms are stuffed together, and I think to the detriment of Google search. With us, as a user, you would come with the expectation that what you would get are the results from your shared collective memory on Twitter, the tweets that you have written, and then the tweets from the people you follow. And that's, at this point with PostPost, that's all we do. We're not trying to do more than that. And in a way, you could argue that we're conserving a lot of complexity in the search space by being focused that way. I would argue that Google, in their first incarnation, with that iconic search input that they launched with, which was a much more simple way into the internet than the directories back in those days of just myriad links everywhere. Google's first mission was to make the world's information accessible, and they did it in the most economical way possible by just having that empty search input there. And in that way, they were conserving all of the complexity of the world's information so that users could just enter something into that input and find what they were looking for. Now that they're smushing things together and combining search paradigms in ways that users don't necessarily expect or want, all of that complexity is starting to rush back out, and it's finding its way into the interface for the user. And I think that's a mistake. We have a much more simple offering, and we're going to grow it from that simple base, but we're not going to try to do too much or stuff paradigms together.
Because Brad, though, is the future of search inevitably social, as so many people are saying now?
I think there's a huge opportunity with social search. I think that it's not the end all be all, but I think it is big enough to be a standalone enterprise. Today, for example, and I'm pretty careful about how I define social search. I think that there are some things out there that smell like social search, but actually aren't. I used a social search product today called Foursquare, and I don't know if most people talk about Foursquare as a social search engine, but based on my experience today, I definitely from this point forward would. What I did was I used their somewhat recently launched Explore feature, and it allowed me to find a place for lunch here in New York really easily. And the way that it allowed me to do it was it accessed all of the people I follow on Foursquare, and it brought to me the things that they've said and the tips that they've shared about restaurants nearby here, all that historical information that's been shared in a social context, relevant and relative to me, was brought back into that as I asked for it. I said, show me places that I can get a sandwich near where I now am on Broadway and Ninth. And I got back, 10 great options vetted by the people I follow on Foursquare. And that's a tremendous example of social search at work, I think. And there are myriad verticals out there that will work just like this. And I think also a generalized social search engine like we're developing at PostPost also has merit. It reminds me a little bit, thinking about the more general version of social search, it reminds me a little bit of your interview with David Weinberger, who was talking about the value of the information being the network itself, the links between things and the links between people. And I think that is where the value of social search is, being able to access that collective shared memory and do something with it, make it actionable in various contexts. I think there's a lot of potential there.
Well, Brad, I'm thrilled that somebody's watching my show. Finally, 2012 is, I think many people are saying, is going to be the year where social goes really big time, particularly with the Facebook IPO, which I think is scheduled for probably May of this year. How do you expect a Facebook IPO and a kind of a large-scale public mania over social and Facebook to change the social search space?
Well, I would think it will bring with it, if it's even possible to imagine, I think it will bring with it a lot more venture capital. I'm sure that there are going to be more startup ideas capitalized to exploit all of this valuable information that's been shared, among people who care about each other in some manner or other. But my hope is that we are a group. We are one of many different sites and different products and different companies who are attacking the same problem. I think the problem being that right now, most of what gets shared on these social networks is of an ephemeral nature, but it's of an ephemeral nature only because of the way the interfaces handle the information. And I think as we move forward, we're going to see more ways to uncover and unlock the value that gets lost below the fold. And I think with Facebook's IPO, potentially there will be more attention on social, and more people will start to see the value down there below the fold, and start to find ways to exploit it. I hope we're one of many companies doing that.
Well, lots to look forward to in 2012 when it comes to search and social search. Brad Noble, you've done a great job explaining your company and the emerging social search space. Thank you so much for appearing on TechCrunch TV, and we'll look forward to having you back in the near future.
It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.